I have this this pretty huge bone to pick with the entire self-help industry today.
Oh, wow. Okay, that is a very large target. Where do you want to start?
It's the whole before and after picture. You know the vibe I'm talking about. You have a bad habit, maybe you're a chronic procrastinator, or you have a short fuse with your kids, or you're a people pleaser.
The classic starting line.
Exactly. So you read the book, you do the work, and you feel great for like 6 months. You look in the mirror and think, I am fixed. I am the glorious after picture.
And then reality hits you like a freight train.
It always does. One random Tuesday, you're exhausted, you're stressed, and boom, you snap at your kid exactly the way you did 5 years ago. And immediately you just feel like
a total fraud.
Yes! You think, I haven't actually changed at all. It was all fake.
It really is the universal experience of anyone trying to grow. That deeply frustrating feeling of just being back to square one.
Right. And honestly, usually that's right where I quit. I just figured the map I was using was complete garbage. But the research we're getting into for today's deep dive part 2 of this manuscript on the architecture of the self, it claims that the map isn't garbage at all, but our reading of it is what's wrong.
Yeah, it points at a fundamental misunderstanding of the actual physics of human growth. So we're specifically looking at chapters 7 through X today. And the author's making a very distinct argument. That regression, that back to square one feeling you mentioned, it isn't failure.
Right.
In fact, if you understand the architecture correctly, it's actually proof that the system is working perfectly.
Which, I'm going to be honest, sounds suspiciously like a consolation prize. Like, oh, you didn't fail. You just spiraled. Congratulations.
Skepticism is good, but let's actually look at the blueprint here. The mission of this entire section is to move you, the reader, from being a passive inhabitant of your psychology, just sort of reacting to whatever weather is happening inside your head, to becoming the architect.
The architect. Someone who can observe the structure and redesign it in real time.
Precisely.
Okay, I'm listening. So we've got 4 main pillars to get through today to make that shift. We need to talk about the recursive self, which is basically how to observe and debug your own code. Then we'll look at the spiral of becoming, which explains why linear progress is a total myth.
A very persistent myth, yeah.
Then we've got meta-architecture, where things get a little trippy with fractals. And finally, living the architecture, which is essentially how to stop trying so hard.
Let's start right at the foundation with the recursive self, chapter 7. This is the toolkit. Because without this, everything else we talk about today is just nice theory.
So the text opens with this concept of meta-awareness. Now, I hear that term, and I immediately picture people sitting on velvet cushions for 3 hours a day. Is that what we're talking about?
No, this is much more functional than that.
Yeah.
The author defines meta-awareness incredibly simply as, I am aware that I am aware. It's the deliberate split between the actor and the witness.
Let's break that down for everyone.
Sure. So most of the time, you are the actor. You are literally on stage in the drama of your own life. If you're angry, you are the anger. You're saying the lines, you're feeling the heat in your chest. There's no separation at all between you and the feeling.
Right. I'm just completely in it. I am the emotion.
Exactly. But the architect builds a mental facility called the witness. It's the ability to step off the stage, sit up in the balcony, and just watch the actor. You can look down and say, wow, the actor is really spiraling right now.
The source used that amazing analogy about the eye, didn't it? Something like, the eye sees the world but cannot see its own seeing.
That's the one. You can't look at your own eye without a mirror. The recursive self is that internal mirror. It's what allows you to debug the code while the program is actually still running.
Okay, but practically speaking, when I am in the middle of a full-blown meltdown, I don't have a mirror. I'm usually just reacting. But the text suggests a very specific tool for this called the noticing protocol. And they claim it takes 60 seconds.
It's a rapid reset. Very tactical.
I really want to walk through this slowly because usually we sort of glaze over these lists in self-help books. Let's take a real everyday scenario. Let's say I open my inbox and there's a highly passive-aggressive email from a coworker I already can't stand.
Oh, perfect. Scenario is set.
So my heart rate spikes immediately. I'm already drafting a very nasty, very clever reply in my head. What do I do?
Step 1 is catch. This takes maybe 10 seconds.
Hey.
You are purely scanning for your own physiology. You do not care why you're mad yet. You just catch the physical fact that your chest is tight or your jaw is clenched.
Okay, so I feel the heat in my face. Caught it.
Step 2 is name. You just label the pattern. And this is the absolute hardest part for high achievers, you have to label it without the shame story attached.
Oh, so I'm not saying I'm such a hothead, why can't I ever handle this stuff professional?
No, that is just the actor getting involved again and rewriting the script. The witness simply says, Oh, there's the defensiveness pattern. Or there's the anger pattern. You completely externalize it. It's a thing happening to you. It's not who you are.
Okay. There's the defensiveness pattern. Done.
Step 3 is locate. You need to identify exactly what mode you're operating in. The text uses 2 specific terms here, responsive variable or autonomous position of 1.
Responsive variable basically means I'm acting like a pinball, right? The email hit me, so I just blindly bounce back.
Correct. You're being entirely controlled by the external stimulus. Position of 1, however, means you are holding your own center, regardless of what the email says. So you locate yourself. You say, I am currently in variable mode.
Okay, I'm definitely in variable mode in this scenario. Which brings us to step 4, check. And this references the 40P framework. Now, we did touch on this briefly in a previous deep dive, but for anyone who didn't memorize the acronyms, what on earth is 40P again?
It stands for target, truth, totally, and title. It's a rapid 4-point audit. 1, is this reaction hitting my target? And it's probably not, if your actual target is having a productive team. 2, is it aligned with the truth? Or am I just projecting my own insecurities? 3, am I totally committed to the consequences of sending this nasty reply? And 4, does this honor my title? Whether that's as a leader, a parent, or just a professional.
That is a lot of mental gymnastics to ask someone to do in 10 seconds.
It is at first, but it becomes a reflex. It boils down to, does this email reply hit my actual target? No, it doesn't.
Okay, so I've realized I'm way off target. Step 5 is adjust.
And the adjustment is entirely micro. You do not have to go meditate on a mountain for an hour. You take one deep breath, you purposely drop your shoulders, you unclench your jaw, you step back into the position of 1.
And then I write the email.
Then you write the email. The important thing to remember here is the actual goal. The goal of the recursive self isn't to turn you into a robot who never ever gets angry. The goal is simply to shorten the lag time.
Lag time being the gap between I'm triggered and I'm noticing that I'm triggered?
Precisely. For most people, that lag time is, frankly, 3 days. You finally realize on Friday why you were so incredibly mad on Tuesday. The architect tries to get that lag time down to 3 minutes. As the author writes, this isn't failure, this is feedback.
That distinction really helps, but it leads us directly into the next big problem. Even if I master this protocol, catch, name, locate, check, adjust to best, I'm still going to have days where I feel like I'm sliding violently backward. I fix the anger issue, and then a year later, it's back. Which brings us to chapter 8, the spiral of becoming.
This chapter aggressively challenges our cultural obsession with linear growth. We all desperately want our personal development to look exactly like a healthy stock chart, just moving up and to the right forever.
Which is exactly why the dip feels so incredibly bad. If I'm not going straight up, I assume I must be going down.
But biological systems just don't grow in straight lines. They grow in cycles. The text introduces the spiral model. Imagine you're walking up a spiral staircase.
Okay, I'm on the stairs.
You walk up a full flight, turning 360 degrees. You look at the wall in front of you. You're seeing the exact same view you saw a minute ago. Same window, same scuff mark on the wall.
So it feels like I haven't moved an inch.
Exactly. But you are actually 1 floor higher. This is why you encounter the exact same demons. Insecurity, impatience, fear of rejection over and over again. You aren't failing to fix them. You are just revisiting them at a brand new altitude.
That's actually a massive relief. So when I hit that people-pleasing button again, it's not that I didn't learn the lesson last time.
Not at all. Loop 1 might have been you blindly pleasing everyone and burning out. Loop 2 was you realizing you were doing it but feeling totally helpless to stop it. Loop 3 is you catching it in the moment using the noticing protocol. The scenery is identical, but your internal capacity is completely different.
The text also talks a lot about the seasons of this spiral, and this is where I struggle, honestly. They spend a lot of time on the integration phase.
Spring versus winter. We all love spring. High energy, rapid growth, big exciting breakthroughs. That feels like real success to us.
And then comes winter, the dreaded plateau, the flat line.
And what do you usually do when you hit a flat line?
I panic. Fully. I assume I've stalled out completely, so I try to force something to happen. I sign up for a marathon, or I completely overhaul my diet, or I start some massive new project at work. I just try to manufacture momentum out of thin air.
And the text warns explicitly against doing exactly that. You cannot force spring in winter. The biological analogy they use is roots before shoots.
Right, like in a garden.
Exactly. Before a plant can shoot up another foot into the air, it has to anchor down another foot into the soil. When you feel like you've plateaued, when everyday life just feels boring and flat, your nervous system is likely busy rewriting itself to actually sustain the rapid growth you just had.
So the flat line is actually active work.
It is the most important work. It's consolidation. If you try to force high output growth during an integration phase, you will break the system. We call that breaking point burnout.
So the actionable advice is what? Just do nothing.
The advice is to trust the season you're in. Maintain your daily protocol, but do not demand the euphoric high of a breakthrough. Let the roots grow.
Okay, I can accept that for my internal world. But Chapter 9 takes a really hard left turn. It shifts from psychology straight into systems theory. This is the meta-architecture section.
It's the vital bridge. Because so many people think self-help is strictly a private, isolated activity. Like, I'm just working on myself in my own little mental gym.
Right, it's just me and my journal against the world.
But the text violently argues that you are not a closed system. And this brings us to the concept of fractals.
Which is a math term, right?
It is. A fractal is a pattern that repeats at different scales. The classic textbook example is a coastline. If you look at it from a satellite in space, it's jagged. If you stand on the cliff, it's jagged. If you pick up a single rock on the beach, it's jagged. The micro always contains the macro.
So how does that mathematical concept apply to me yelling at my kids or snapping at my team?
The central argument is that your internal patterns are literal fractals that replicate into your external world. If your internal world is chaotic, reactive, and entirely based on avoidance,
that I naturally create a chaotic and reactive team around me.
Exactly. If you systematically avoid difficult truth with yourself, if you lie to yourself about your target or your truth during that 40p check, you will inevitably create a culture around you where people lie to each other to keep the peace. The organization just becomes a massive magnification of the leader's own psychology.
That is a very heavy burden. It essentially means I'm responsible for the dynamic of the entire room.
It is heavy, but it's also the exact solution. This is the ripple effect. And the source uses that famous ecological example to illustrate it, the reintroduction of the wolves in Yellowstone.
I know this story, but I really want to hear how they apply it to the concept of the self.
So just a super quick recap for context. For decades, Yellowstone National Park had no wolves. Because of that, the deer population absolutely exploded. They ate all the vegetation along the riverbanks. Because there were no plants with deep roots left, the riverbanks severely eroded. The rivers got wide, they got muddy, and the entire ecosystem basically collapsed.
That was a little mess.
Then they reintroduced the wolves. The wolves represent the position of one. Now, the wolves didn't just kill the deer, they fundamentally changed the deer's behavior. The deer stopped grazing in the open valleys where they were easily hunted.
Which finally allowed the trees and the brush to grow back.
Right. And because the trees grew back, those new roots stabilized the eroding riverbanks. The rivers literally changed course. They became deeper. They ran clearer. The birds returned to the new trees. The beavers returned to the deeper rivers. The entire physical geography of the park changed.
It's a fantastic nature documentary. But connect the dots for me here. How am I the wolf in this scenario?
In your family or in your company, you are the position of one. If you are chaotic or if you're entirely absent, meaning no wolves, the deer, which are your employees or your kids, they run wild. They eat everything. The boundaries completely erode.
But if I step in,
If you step in and just hold your center, if you actively use the noticing protocol to stay in that autonomous mode, you act as the stabilizing force for the whole ecosystem. You don't have to physically force the river to move. You just have to hold your position.
so if I manage to stay calm during a massive crisis meeting at work, I'm not just calming my own heart rate.
No. Nervous systems biologically co-regulate. If the leader is in a state of primal threat, the whole team goes into a state of threat. If the leader is firmly in a state of witness and architecture, the team unconsciously creates safety. You are literally terraforming the room with your own nervous system.
That's the fractal in action. My internal calm scales up and becomes the external culture.
Precisely. You don't fix a broken culture by sending out a new memo. You fix the culture by fixing the code in the architect's mind.
Which brings us nicely to the final pillar, Chapter X, living the architecture. Because frankly, listening to all this, it sounds absolutely exhausting. Constantly watching myself, catching the patterns, being the wolf, stabilizing the river. Do I seriously have to do this manual labor forever?
That is the ultimate fear, isn't it?
Yeah.
That we are basically signing up for a lifetime of hypervigilance.
Right.
But the text maps out the natural transition from conscious competence to unconscious competence.
Ah, the 4 stages of learning.
Right. Stage 1 is unconscious incompetence. I don't know. You're just blissfully unaware that your reactions are actively ruining the riverbanks.
Ignorance really is bliss.
Until the ecosystem collapses, yeah.
Yeah.
Then comes stage 2, conscious incompetence. This is the truly painful part of growth. You clearly see the pattern. You watch yourself getting defensive in real time. You see the spiral happening, but you just don't have the tools to stop it yet.
This is exactly where people feel like they're getting worse. They think, I used to be so happy, and now I'm just painfully aware of how deeply flawed I am every second of the day.
But that painful awareness is the actual awakening. It's necessary. Then you graduate to stage 3, conscious competence. This is where the heavy lifting happens. You can hold your center, but it requires intense effort. You have to actively use the noticing protocol. You have to remind yourself to breathe. You have to meticulously check your 40p.
It's totally manual labor, sweaty palms, deep breaths.
It is. But the ultimate destination is stage 4. Unconscious competence, mastery. This is where the architecture finally becomes your default setting.
Give me a tangible example of what that actual shift feels like.
Let's take setting boundaries. In stage 3, setting a boundary is a literal war. You write down what you're going to say to your boss, you rehearse it in the mirror, you feel sick with guilt, you sweat, and then you replay the conversation in your head for 3 straight days.
Oh yeah, the classic boundaries hangover. I know it well.
Right. But in stage 4, a boundary is just a physiological reflex. Someone steps on your foot, and you just calmly say, please get off, without any massive spike in cortisol.
Rude.
Your body just handles it for you. You aren't doing the architecture anymore. You are simply being it.
The text calls this the paradox of mastery, right?
Exactly. When you finally get incredibly good at this stuff, you actually stop noticing it. The effort becomes completely invisible again. You just are that person now.
Which brings us full circle back to the spiral, because if I finally reach stage 4, if I become the wolf, the master architect who just effortlessly sets boundaries, am I done? Do I get a diploma and retire?
I am so sorry to tell you this, but no. The source ends this entire section with a very firm, very clear message about the illusion of arrival.
The myth of happily ever after.
We all desperately want to reach a point where we are just finished, where we are perfectly enlightened, fully optimized, and nothing ever bothers us again. But the text argues that stage 4 unconscious competence is simply the new baseline for your next spiral upward.
It's like you finally graduate high school, you feel like you're at the absolute top of the food chain, and then you start college and you're just a clueless freshman all over again.
That is the perfect analogy. It's an infinite game. The goal isn't to win the game and stop playing. The goal is to earn the right to keep playing at higher and higher levels. The internal problems you successfully solve today simply give you the capacity to solve much bigger, much more interesting problems tomorrow.
So the fact that I'm never actually done isn't a sign of failure?
No, not at all. As the author beautifully puts it, you are not done. Not because you failed, but because the nature of this work is infinite.
That actually changes the vibe of self-help completely for me. It shifts from this heavy, I have so much broken stuff to fix, to a much lighter, I get to keep exploring what I'm capable of.
It invites you to deeply trust whatever phase you are currently in. If you are in that messy, painful, conscious incompetence phase, trust it. If you are in the quiet, frustrating winter of integration, trust it. Just keep spiraling up.
So let's quickly recap the blueprint we've uncovered today. We are moving from the reactive actor to the observant architect. We're actively using the noticing protocol catch, name, locate, check, and adjust to debug our reactions in real time and shorten that lag time.
We're accepting that growth is a spiral, not a straight linear line, and we're learning to honor the winter phases where those unseen roots grow deep.
We're recognizing that our personal habits are fractals, that by stabilizing our own internal position of one, we literally stabilize the external ecosystems of our families and our teams.
And finally, we're aiming for unconscious competence, knowing full well that mastery isn't a finish line, it's just the starting line for the next loop.
That is the architecture. So here is my final thought for you listening right now. We talked a lot today about being the architect. I want you to look at just one room in your life today. Just one. Maybe it's your morning routine. Maybe it's how you handle negative feedback. Maybe it's the dynamic at your family dinner table. And ask yourself, if I were designing this dynamic from scratch today, would I build it this way?
Oof. That is a very dangerous question to ask.
It really is. But that is exactly where the renovation starts. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.
Keep spiraling.
We will see you on the next one.